Well, welcome back to Fitzroy Place, and to the second part of this two-part video, where we'll have a look at the odd-numbered houses in Fitzroy Place, and briefly as well, the adjoining Fitzroy Gardens. In fact, Fitzroy Gardens provides a sort of boundary, as it were, between the suburbs of Dunedin and Sandy Bay. Fitzroy Gardens adjoins Fitzroy Place. The two are complementary. This wedge-shaped garden is most noteworthy for its trees. It too has London plane trees along its perimeters. It also has sweeping lawns, flower beds, and additionally other deciduous trees. It even has a special place for marriage ceremonies. Fitzroy Garden sits on the same escarpment as Fitzroy Place, and if you walk towards Fitzroy Place you can get some nice views of Battery Point, the Derwent River and parts of Sandy Bay as you look south. The northern boundary of Fitzroy Gardens is Fitzroy Crescent. It too has some unique houses, but we'll leave that for another day. Fitzroy Gardens have their own Facebook page. It's never ultra crowded, so a good place to wander, read, or just daydream. Oh, I forgot, or to use your iPad or electronic device. We're walking towards Fitzroy Place now. If you're crossing over into Fitzroy Place from the gardens as a pedestrian, take care. A number of the streets intersect here, and it can be very, very busy in peak times. Now let's examine the houses at the very beginning of Fitzroy Place as we cross the road and walk from Fitzroy Gardens in an easterly direction. The house Bellevue at 31 Fitzroy Place is located on land that was once part of a 1 acre land grant. I've indicated its approximate location on the map with an orange arrow. This land parcel became Bellevue Estate when established in about 1824. In the picture you can see Bellevue to the left of the house on the corner of Fitzroy Place and Anthill Street. This house on the corner at number 35 Fitzroy Place and Bellevue, house number 31, will be examined in a bit more detail shortly. Bellevue Estate was not substantially subdivided until the 1940s. Much of our Hobart homes from Federation upwards are the result of the breakup of estates like Bellevue, or the subdividing of the many farms and orchards that existed in our inner suburbs like Sandy Bay, West Hobart, Dunedin, and so forth. I'd like to recommend a book to you actually. It's called 100 Hobart Houses, 1901 to 2000. A selection of houses to demonstrate the variety and distinctiveness of Hobart houses from the 20th century. Written by Miranda Morris, it was published by the Hobart City Council and contains wonderful photos by Jan Dallas, who is a superb local photographer. The only Fitzroy Place entry is a house built in 1930, number 35, and it's a brilliant example of the Californian bungalow style. It was a style popular between the two world wars. Usually they are 1.5 stories, and usually the inverted hexagon of the roof allows space for some upstairs rooms. Notice the broad roof eaves and the large front porch, parts of which serve as walls or enclosures. Inside, they are very much open plan and resist the use of corridors. The residence at 35 Fitzroy Place was one of a pair of houses built by Thomas Edge, a major land developer of the time. Both residences, 33 and 35, were built in 1930. Number 35 is the Edge's house, as number 33 is, to put it delicately, less grand. Here we are at 31 Fitzroy Place and the house at number 31, Bellevue, that once was the centrepiece of the Bellevue estate. This beautiful building is possibly the earliest Italianate villa built in Australia. You can still see parts of the original walls of the estate extending along adjoining properties, ample evidence of the subdivision of the original estate. This is part of a double-storey brick and stucco building with a hip roof. There is also a bracketed pediment to a lower storey window and eave brackets. It was set in a large garden with mature plantings, many of which survive. Nowadays it's broken into several pats. As part of the development of the original estate, it contains several small modern units surrounding the main building, but in a really sympathetic style. To see a good selection of Italianate villas in the one place, there are some in Melbourne, up around Treasury Gardens, up near the Victorian Parliament. The beautiful Government House in Melbourne is also in this Italianate style. I want to look at number 25 Fitzroy Place. The house is located on land that was once part of a larger parcel of approximately 3 acres. This large land parcel had frontages on Davey Street and Fitzroy Place. Just to elaborate, Davey Street is a large arterial road that is the next northerly street over from Fitzroy Place, and itself containing scores of historic buildings. It was not subdivided along Fitzroy Place frontage until the early 1900s. The house, which is now part of St Anne's Rest Home, but was once defined as 25 Fitzroy Place and known as Nui, I hope I pronounced that right, a Maori word meaning sunshine, was constructed in around 1911. Essentially, it's a 2-storey masonry and rough cast Federation house with conspicuous high-pitched gabled roof clad with ceramic tiles. There are prominent eaves and exposed rafters. It's got a higgledy-piggledy assortment of windows that adds to its charm. There is a nice fountain currently not in use at the front of the house. The complex has another wonderful house on the property on the Davey Street frontage at 142 to 146 Davey. This is the National Trust House Hawthornden, which was built around 1836 and is nicely preserved. I like the beautiful yellow coloured render. The downside is the 1960s expansion. I think it was that did it, and it saw a service alley driven into the Fitzroy Place street itself, which sort of detracts a little from the overall streetscape. However, given St Anne's is preserved and retained some historic buildings, we can't be too critical. I'm now walking along the northern side of Fitzroy Place, heading east. It's a bit blustery and noisy today, as you can probably hear. As you can see, there's in many senses a normal suburban street. Hopefully some of the houses and still photos I've shown you in this small walk will give you a sense of how each house relates to the other in the streetscape. The street reminds me of 2 places I've lived overseas. The leafy streets around Notting Hill Gate, Ladbroke Grove area in London. Never forget, these trees are London plane trees. And Putsi Miao in English Confucius Temple area in Nanjing. And in this Buddhist city in summer, these plane trees provide wonderful relief from the hot sun. I'm reminded of that beautiful Van Morrison song, Cypress Avenue, when I'm in Fitzroy Place. It seems to have an element of that song in its composition. Leafy grandeur, grand houses that seem somehow to emotionally distance the passerby from the residents. Hello. It seems that a beautiful lady a carriage and Elizabeth Bennet, a look-alike perhaps, is not that far removed from reality, if we could block out the cars momentarily. I strongly suspect, like Fitzroy, Melbourne, Fitzroy Place was named after Sir Charles Augustus Fitzroy, a one-time governor of New South Wales.
Could end up on the beach.
Anyhow, do yourself a favour. Do a short walk along Fitzroy Place, and optimally in all 4 seasons. It will, I guarantee you, put you in a very good headspace. I'm now walking. I want to explore the dwellings at 17 to 21 Fitzroy Place, because what makes them unique is that they were, in at least 2 instances, built specifically as flats. This is very unique and is the start of a trend in the interwar years to build apartments. Number 17 was built around 1935 and contains distinctive polychrome clinker bricks. It also has distinctive windows, including some arch windows. There are 2 original garages located either side of the front fence, notwithstanding the doors, which are modern replacements. Here now is this beautiful building at 21 Fitzroy Place, notable because it was specifically designed in the early 1930s as flats. Just such a superb design. Also notable because it was designed by a very famous Hobart architect, Bernard Walker. Walker also designed the adjoining house as well at number 19, but other examples of Walker's work around Hobart are the Cenotaph, the beautiful portico at Friends School, as well as the construction of the Cadbury estate. It's essentially an interwar bungalow with Spanish mission features, such as the decorative brickwork below the gables, a front porch decorated with a round arch Spanish mission style motif above the porch entry. An original garage survives, and it's interesting in that many garages in Fitzroy Place exhibit that tendency in the first part of the last century to ensure the architecture of the garage conformed in some way to the architecture of the main building. The residence next door at 19 was, as I mentioned, designed by Walker. The house known as Raynham was a 2-storey face brick interwar period house, not designed originally as flats but as a residence. Its most beautiful feature is a single-storey brick porch with a skillion roof and a round arch port entry lined with polychrome bricks that form a sun motif.